let me just tell you who I am. I'm Joe Gukaskis. I'm author of Journey of the Awakened Psychic and owner of this page, the Psychic Awakening for Empaths, highly sensitive healers, and light warriors. Um, and I just want to start off by saying that part of what had me do this broadcast in the first place, I've been having so many one-on-one conversations lately with, people who are interested in joining my new program, the Psychic Awakening Breakthrough Program. And by the way, if this is something you're interested in, there's a link to, schedule a call with me if you want to find out more. It's in the description. But, what I'm hearing, what I'm learning from listening to all of these people is that, people are, many are awakening to their abilities. And what I'm finding is that the more that they wake up, right, the more they open up to all this, the more overwhelmed with energy that they get, right? And the more energy that comes their way, the harder it is to function, normally, right? So this is how I came up with today's topic, this mini masterclass lecture for today. And it's called The Three Keys to Overcoming Your Energy Overwhelm on Your Awakening Journey. All right. So with that, let me just start off with a couple questions and feel free to reply, again, whether you're live or in the recording. How many of you, your psychic senses are opening up or they've been open? I know from the many people I've spoken with, this is one of the questions I like to ask them. How long have you been dealing with this, right? Like less than a year, 1 to 5 years, longer, all your life? And, go ahead if you want to go ahead and comment, and good, I'll take a look at each other's answers here. And the second question is, as you're opening up, how many of you are feeling more and more overwhelmed as your abilities, access more of these kind of quote unquote out there information, right? And then on top of that, how many of you are feeling unsure? And you're feeling unsure because you're so full of everyone else's energies but your own. I can't tell you how many people that I encounter, especially on the beginnings of their journey. They're like, gosh, I'm so full of everyone else's energies, I don't even know who I am anymore. All right. So how many of you can relate to that? That some days you're just like, oh, I don't even know who I am anymore. Right. Because you're just so full of everyone else's energies. Now, often, right, and I wrote this in the description here, often on the awakening journey, right, energy can come at you so quickly, especially in the beginning. And the reason why is because think of it as like a light in the dark, okay? And let me see. Felicia here is like, I'm definitely feeling overwhelmed, which makes me want to hide from people in general. So true. And I've been dealing with this for about the last 10 years or so. All right, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's so common that, yeah, you don't even want to be out there in public anymore, right? Let alone deal with everyone else's energies when you have your own energies to deal with. So anyway, as I was saying, here you are opening up to your abilities. You might be an empath, really highly sensitive already, and the thing is, think of it as like a light in the dark, right? Imagine it's pitch black, and then all of a sudden there's this light out of nowhere, right? And in a weird way, it's like spirit from all around all of a sudden sees this light, like this beacon of light. And the funny thing with spirit, the universe, or whatever term you want to use, beings or spirit guides, or just the world of energy in general, it's almost like, okay, there's that small opening, right? And the world of spirit oftentimes is like, oh, look, there's an opening, I want to get through. And especially with some of these guides or even dead relatives or other beings or spirit, they're so desperate to be said hello to. Does that make sense? And so they see this opening and they're like, oh, okay, let's go. And then on top, once that spiritual doorway is open, and that's when it's like, okay, the floodgates have opened up, right? Because all they need is this little opening. And that saying, you give an inch, they take a mile, right? So once those floodgates open up, it oftentimes, a lot of the awakening psychics are like, wow, there's that energy, or oh, I got that weird text message, or ooh, I got that weird 333-444-777. So how many of you like get signs, right? Go ahead and type in the signs that you get, or maybe you get these weird messages from spirit, or maybe you get some download, right? Some weird download of information that you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Now, on top of that, to make this even worse, right? If you're an empath, right, someone that you feel other people's energies, you can feel what's going on with them, or you're just highly sensitive in general. Okay, and I know I got referred someone the other day, like they're sensitive to like even energy off the microwave or electromagnetic kind of energy, right? They're that highly sensitive. Well, when you're like that, guess what? All this energy that's coming at you, it could be like 100 times worse. All right. Does that make sense? So when it comes to being overwhelmed, there's kind of this mechanism of all that's going on where you're highly sensitive already. And then once you start opening that little door, then spirit is like, there's an opening. And then it wants to come in. And then next thing you know, totally overwhelmed. Right. Nancy's saying, haha, again today, my dreams are insane also. Yeah, and you know what? That's the funny thing about dreams. Talking about little doorways. Often these little doorways, and by the way, there's like a 15-second delay between when I say something and when you might reply, and then it takes time for you to type, so I might have this delayed response here. But yeah, talking about little doorways, right? Even dreams are like little doorways. Okay. And, people are like, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean with my dreams? And I did a whole video on like, what does it mean? Like, because that's literally the number one question people ask in the group. I saw this, I had this dream, I had these signs. Even Felicia's like, I've been bombarded with 222, 2222, 111, 444, 333 every day. Right. And so they're getting these signs and they're like, what do I do? What does that mean? What do I do next? Those are the most common questions. And I find that just the act of asking those questions, that makes that doorway open up even a little bit more, a little bit more. And the universe is funny like that because once you start asking these questions, you're opening the door, the universe just starts sending you even more messages. And why is the universe doing that? Well, it's because you're asking, right? But the thing is, you're not getting the meaning of it, right? So guess what? The universe is going to try to send you even more to actually get it, right? So anyway, that's kind of how it's working in the world of spirit. Now, based on everything I've said so far, how many of you could, identify with all this, right? The door is starting to open up. Then the more you ask, the more you wonder, like, what does this 222 or 333 mean? Then it's like these psychic signals just come at you all even more, right? Now, as I mentioned at the top of this presentation here, I've been doing a lot of live calls lately for people who are wanting to find out about my new program, and just about all of them. When I interview them and asking, what's going on in your world, I want to say 95% of them are all sharing this common thing, right? As far as learning, as far as their challenges. Let's see, Nancy saying, a guy I fell in love with years ago was in my dream last night, and I reached out to him a few months ago. No response. Okay, yeah. So it makes you wonder, right? Why did you get that in the first place? Yeah, and it's funny with dreams, right? Because that's more like working on the astral plane, and I'll do a whole other lecture on that sometime. Um, so anyway, like I said, this all originated because I've been talking to a lot of people on these calls. And so this is where I came up with the 3 keys to overcoming energy overwhelm on your awakening journey. All right. So here's the first key. All right. So here's the first key to overcoming overwhelm. So the first key is to realize, first of all, that any kind of spiritual awakening is not pretty. It's not always pretty. Okay. Quick story. it's a fictitious name, but I'll just call her Clara, right? For just just to keep some privacy in it. Clara, she was this one student of mine, and she was super sensitive to other people's energies. And she discovered she was an empath from researching online. And the thing with her is that she discovered that empaths, right, feel, sense energy a lot. And she's like, oh my gosh, that explains so much, right? Because she was looking for a label to describe what she was. But awakening to this knowledge in a way made her even more sensitive, right? It just kind of made her even more sensitive. And why is that? Well, it's because she had her attention on it more. Does that make sense? So, when it comes to your spiritual awakening, and spiritual awakening isn't always pretty, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to be more spiritually awake, right? So they're focused on it, they're giving it their energy, their attention. And then next thing you know, that again, there's this flood of energy that starts to come in, right? So I just want to point out that many of you that are on this awakening journey, just because you're awakening doesn't mean it's pretty, right? And because you have this belief that, oh, it should be pretty, awakening or being more spiritual should be like more zen or whatever. People have to hit up against that belief, right? That belief is challenged, basically, is what I'm saying. And so, it's at the point with Clara where she finally needed help, right? She needed help to learn to control these experiences, because the more she focused on it, the more that little door I mentioned, I talked about earlier, the more it opened up, right? And so, we had an interesting call where she really thought she was going crazy, right? And that things were just weird. And for me, I'm like, well, welcome to my world. All right. So the point being of this number one, right? This key number one is just to realize that your awakening journey isn't always going to be pretty. It's not going to be like the Zen experience, like we might think it might be. If anything, it could be a real roller coaster. All right. So is all that making sense? Just go ahead and comment if you have any comments about your own kind of roller coaster of your own awakening journey there. So that was number one. Now, number two, all right, and number two key to overcoming your energy overwhelm is to realize that your old boundaries, right, if you have any boundaries at all, they just don't work anymore. All right. So what I mean by this is, um, you know, where you were energetically, all right. Say you're just on the beginning of your journey, and this side is the beginning, and this other side, that's like the where you're headed to. Well, your old boundaries, right? That was fine for your energy situation before. But now that you're moving to higher and higher levels of energy work and energy awareness, these old psychic boundaries that you had before, they no longer will work for you. Does that make sense? And let me give you an analogy. Say you had say you had a puppy, right? And like you're doing the kennel training for your puppy. And you have this little small carrier, right? And then, your puppy gets older and older, right? It's just becoming more mature, and it literally outgrows that little kennel that you once originally had. Right? Are you gonna try to stick your grown dog now into that same kennel as before? Of course not, right? So this is what I mean by your old boundaries, right? Your old psychic boundaries, they just don't work anymore, right? And so here you are getting overwhelmed with all this energy. And so the key here is that you need to learn how to establish new boundaries. Okay? I just need to learn how to establish better boundaries. And you must practice. All right. Hey, Philip, good to see you. Yeah, sorry about that, Philip. I had to change the time real quick. I was going to start at 4:30, but I had to start at. I have an appointment at 4:30. So, but yeah, here we are talking about energy overwhelm. That first key here is to realize that spiritual awakening isn't always pretty, and you're just going to hit up against that belief of how you think it should be, and next thing you know, more energies just come in to give you that crazy contrast to your to how you think it should be. And then the second key is that your old boundaries literally won't work anymore. right? Because you're expanding your energy, and just like a grown dog, you're not going to put a grown dog in its little puppy kennel, right? You literally need new boundaries. Judy saying this is all great. Hey, Judy. Judy saying this is all great. Makes sense to me, and I'm experiencing this now. Yeah, thanks for sharing. All right. Actually, let me. So the more you open up to energy, the better boundaries you need. It's the whole point of this particular, um, the second key here. And I'm talking about boundaries, right? Even though you establish new boundaries, it does take practice, right? Because the more you open up, the more you need to work on your psychic boundaries. It's just one of those things. Your boundaries yesterday literally might not be good enough today. That's how, when you start working with energy and energy overwhelm and the way spirit works, a lot of times it can be like, well, it's too much, right? So anyway, I talked about my program, and this is why it's an 8-week program in the first place, right? It's definitely not an overnight thing to establish these new boundaries. All right, so key number one, if you're just joining us, that spiritual awakening isn't always pretty, and you have to adjust your beliefs on what you think awakening is all about, right? If you think awakening is all about Zen and like this meditation and you're not going to be energy overwhelmed, you think it's going to be all this peace, well, you have to let go of that belief. All right. Then the second belief is your old boundaries, your old energy boundaries. How it was for you yesterday, guess what? It won't work for today, especially if you're expanding into higher levels of psychic awareness. All right. Now, number 3, before I get to that, I see a comment here. Nancy's asking, how do we perceive the energy from maybe it's just being depressed, or maybe I'm just in a funk? Great question. And in my programs, when I teach, and even in my book, one of the things I mentioned is for you to realize there's 2 kinds of energies, right? It's either your energy or it's not your energy, right? And so if you are depressed, or if it's just being in a funk, what if you were to take a look at it from the standpoint of like, are you actually running your own energy, right? And if you are, your energy is made for you. You're going to be alive. It's going to feel good, right? But talking about being overwhelmed with all this other energy from everyone else, then, no wonder you're in a funk, right? Now, to distinguish like being depressed versus just being in a funk, right? Energetically, that's just something. The more you get to know your own energy, the more that what energy actually works for you. All right, then you have that contrast of like, okay, I'm just overwhelmed and running some other energy there. All right, so thanks for asking that question, and hopefully that made sense. I was explaining it more in energy terms, but if I had more time, for sure, I'd dive more into that. Let's see. So let me get to key number 3, because I do have and right at 4:30, I have a hard stop here. So number 3, the key number 3, and this is especially if you're an empath, right? And it's that you definitely need to practice self-care with energy tools or meditation or whatever you might use to move all this energy out of your space, right? So I talked about, okay, there's this little opening. I talked about energies coming in, and then I talked about, okay, your boundaries aren't what they used to be to handle this new energy, right? So if energy does get in your space, then you're going to need more self-care. Okay. And the more you open up to this world, the more self-care you need. All right. And so I know I have a couple people on that are already in the program that are on this call here. Yeah, you got to practice. You got to keep practicing. Okay. And why do you need to do the self-care? Well, you're literally carrying everyone else's energies around, right? And it's kind of like you're packed on vacation, right? And you have the suitcase, and rather than, and say it's like a summer vacation that you're going on, but you're carrying around the suitcase with all this winter gear in there, right? It makes no sense. What if you were to just clean off that winter gear, clean out all that winter stuff, and that way you could actually carry around what you actually need, right? And so how many of you, like, you're just carrying around too many of other people's energies, right? No wonder you're tired. No wonder you get overwhelmed, right? So again, self-care, releasing, letting go, establishing the boundaries, meditate if you have to. All right. So that's key number 3. So anyway, number 1, if you're just joining, key number 1 here, realize that not all spiritual awakening is always pretty. So you have to, eliminate that old belief. Number 2, reestablish your boundaries, right? And just realize your old boundaries won't suffice for these new energy levels. And Nancy's like, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to give us all your knowledge. I love watching. Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate that. And then number 3, especially if you're an empath, you need energy tools and self-care. Okay. And Philip is saying, yep, gotta practice. So now the question becomes, how long are you going to keep going this way of carrying everyone else's energies, or, staying disconnected from your gifts, right? How long are you going to keep carrying this old suitcase of old energy around, right? When really what's there is like, what if you're to just clean out? And, another question, another way to ask it is, what is it really getting for you to stay overwhelmed, right? And I like to say that just because this energy is familiar, it doesn't mean it's always good, right? So a lot of times we just stick with what's familiar, and yet, your suitcase is full there. But more importantly, what's on the other side, right? Once you learn to clear, once you learn these new boundaries, once you learn to, create new beliefs around what awakening is all about, then what's available for you on the other side? What can you actually start doing with your gifts? Right. And like I said, I've been talking to a lot of people lately, and a lot of them are like, gosh, I want to learn to use my gifts to actually help others, right? Be a healer, or be, you might not be a professional psychic, but you could, help others with your gifts. Right. So, go ahead and type in the comments, what would you do with your gifts if you were able to, access these higher and higher levels of energy here? All right. Now, at this point, you have a couple choices, right? Knowing this, and knowing that you don't have to stay overwhelmed, and establishing boundaries and all this other stuff that we talked about just now. And so, I just want to let you know that you don't have to be overwhelmed, right? And you can learn to control your energy experiences rather than your experiences controlling you. How does that sound, right? So, if this interests you, if you want to take your development to the next level, I do want to let you know that there is training available, and I've been hinting at it this whole time. It's this new program I have, the Psychic Awakening Breakthrough Program, and it's 8 weeks of you not only learning how to hone your gifts, but you learn tools like psychic protection, so you can honor your psychic boundaries, and you learn how to move all these foreign energies out of your space. Okay. Philip is saying to bring knowledge to the world. Yeah, awesome. Right. Share your gifts, share your knowledge, share your wisdom. All right. And as I was saying, you also learn how to clear your chakras, right? And that's also available in this program. And once you get to that stage, right, then you could graduate to even learning how to give a basic reading or healing to people, right? So you could actually use your gifts to help heal others. Right? Nancy is saying, I'd share the gift of reaching and healing with the earth. How beautiful, right? Thanks for sharing that. All right. So, how's all this sounding, right? Where you could actually use your gifts for good. And I love the comments that are coming in here. So anyway, rather than being controlled by your gifts, you go from being controlled to now using your gifts for the greater good. All right. So anyway, I've been speaking to a lot of people, and more often than not, they say, I have this calling. I want to help others as well. All right. So if this is you, and you want to take your gifts to the next level, what I want to do is I want to invite you to book a call with me if you want to find out more about this program, this particular program, the Psychic Awakening Breakthrough Program. All right. And for the next 3 days, I actually have a few openings. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of advertising as well. But if you want to get in there, if you want to go ahead and have just a quick chat, it's like 20, 30 minutes about what's available to you, we'll hop on a call. I'll find out more about you. You'll find out more about the program. And if you love it, then I'll, tell you the details about how to enroll. All right, so if that interests you, then, go ahead, and I'm going to put this in the link. It's also in the description there. Oops. Oh, looks like, oh, there it goes. All right. So yeah, it's at get.mypsychicawakening.com/breakthrough. All right. And there you could, find out a little bit more, click on the link to schedule, and then yeah, let's have a talk. Let's have a chat of what it looks like for you, so that you can go from being overwhelmed to really start to use your gifts for the greater good. All right. So anyway, Judy is saying this makes so much sense. You helped me so much. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. So again, if you want to take it to the next level, go ahead and go in the description. You could click on that link and let's schedule a call. Let's talk about what it is for you. What would it look like for you to take your gifts to the next level? All right. So with that, let me go ahead and sum up what we covered today, because I do have my 4:30 call here. We talked about the 3 keys to overcoming overwhelm. We talked about how once you start getting into this world, things open up more and more and more. And then once spirit sees there's an opening, spirit wants to come through. And so, the first key we talked about, you got to, change your beliefs about what spiritual awakening means, right? It's not always pretty. It's not always a Zen thing. And so once you could adjust your beliefs, your expectations will change. That's key number one. Key number two, realize your old boundaries don't work for you anymore. All right. So if you want to use if you want to elevate, you need a new set of boundaries. Okay. And then number three, practice self-care, right? Practice self-care. And so self-care is all about moving these energies out of your space. All right. And so if you want to learn these tools, again, go ahead and reach out to me, go ahead and book a call, and let's get you on the path to this next step in your awakening, right? All right. With that, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for joining. Nancy, love and light to you too. Thank you so much. And I'm going to be doing these every week, right? I'm going to try to stick to 4:30. Today I had to do it a little earlier, but no, other than that, thanks again for joining. I will see you in the group, or I'll see you next week. All right. All right.